Welcome to the Preservation Association of Lincoln Brown Bag Lecture Series. My name is Eileen Birch and I'm the coordinator of these lectures. Today's program is sponsored by the Preservation Association of Lincoln. If you like these programs, please join by going to preservelincoln.org. Our speaker today is Elizabeth Chase. Elizabeth has been with the Nebraska Main Street program since 1997. She holds an undergraduate degree in art history and a master's of community and regional planning degree from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. As executive director of the Nebraska Main Street program or network, she is responsible for planning and coordinating the delivery of community-specific technical assistance and training in the areas of economic development, design and historic preservation, promotion, and organization in statewide communities. Elizabeth has written several National Register nominations and has provided assistance on other preservation projects throughout Nebraska. She was a guest lecturer at the Robert R. Taylor School of Architecture and Construction Science in November 2015. Elizabeth has worked with communities in Arizona, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, South Dakota, and Wyoming, and served 2 terms on the Nebraska Main Street Coordinator Executive Council. In addition to her work in preservation and Main Street, Elizabeth serves as Executive Secretary for the Maury Sandoz Heritage Society and serves as an officer on the Board of Directors of the University of Nebraska Band Alumni Association. Elizabeth's talk today is titled An Update on Projects in Nebraska's Main Street Communities. Please join me in welcoming Elizabeth Chase.
Thank you, Eileen. I'm going to give a little talk about what's going on in Main Street in the state of Nebraska and give you show you some examples of some projects that are happening right now. But first, I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about what Main Street is. Oops. There we go. The Main Street program was actually started in 1980 by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. In the late 1970s, the Trust realized that preservation was more than house museums and landmark buildings, and that our downtown commercial districts were dying due to the public policy of the day and the development of shopping malls and big box stores at the edges of communities. They quickly realized that downtown's needs were more than just the empty, deteriorating buildings, but also the social and economic culture that existed in our city centers was also disappearing. This problem required a multifaceted approach for the solution. To address what was happening in communities, the Trust developed the Main Street program, and as it grew, the National Main Street Center was established. Statewide coordinating programs, one countywide coordinating program, and several urban coordinating programs were started, with then the designated Main Street communities falling under their charge. The program in Nebraska started in 1994 with a grant from the Lead Foundation. The program was started as a partnership between the UNL College of Architecture, the Nebraska Department of Economic Development, Nebraska State Historical Society, and the Nebraska Department of Roads. Over time, we've lived through a multitude of partnerships, organizational restructurings, some of them successful, some of them not very successful. So in 2013, we finally decided that we needed to take things into our own hands and become our own independent organization. With a board of directors, we formed a 501c3 and created the Nebraskan Main Street Network. The network of communities is joined together by the desire to strengthen downtown business districts, but more importantly, doing it comprehensively and sustainably. We're an accredited program of the National Main Street Center and part of a program that they now call Main Street America. Nebraska's currently got 7 designated Main Street communities, 8 associate member communities, 2 rural associate member communities, and a handful of communities in our newest program called the Co-op Partners, which we're piloting with the co-op farmers co-ops in Dorchester and the Frontier Co-op in Brainerd. The program is for communities in their membership areas that are under 1,000 in population but have a business district and a committee of volunteers that are interested in receiving guidance in their downtown revitalization and other community development efforts. This is what we do. Main Street's a 4-point approach: organization, design, promotion, and economic vitality. We work with communities to help them create a social and more vibrant environment for businesses to thrive. Typically, when we start working with communities that join the program, we find that they've done or continue to do things haphazardly. They don't have a plan, they don't have a vision. They tend to attack their problems with a sense of urgency, and their solutions are often just a Band-Aid. They don't have a long-term vision for their downtown and only seem interested in the short-term fix. They're not looking at the root of their problems and continue to fix the same problems over and over again. Until we help them understand that it isn't about the quick fix and that there are a lot of other important things to take care of first, they start to realize and start to see the impact of some of the small, less visible efforts that are often a lot greater and will last longer than the Band-Aid fixes that they're currently working on. We help communities formulate a vision for their downtown and develop strategies to get them to where you want to be. You know, we all think about Lincoln's Haymarket. You know, how many of you remember it 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even 10 years ago? You know, how did it get that way? It took years to develop. It took a lot of time to figure things out. With a few good promotions, great word-of-mouth advertising, and some great old buildings to hang out in, the Haymarket became a really cool place to be. The little things that a small group of people believed in, coupled with the chance that the city of Lincoln took in partnering with private investment, was that seed that sprouted that today is an even more vibrant area than it was early on. Now take that same sort of seed and plant it in a much smaller place with the lack of resources and less people. The effort is a lot more difficult. That's why Nebraska has a Main Street program. We provide communities with the education and guidance so that they better understand their market, understand what they can do with the limited resources they have available so that they can sustain their efforts for the long term, both financially and with their talent resources. Main Street communities see their leadership strengthen through Main Street and are great stewards of the financial investments made by the private and public sectors in their downtown revitalization efforts. While rural Nebraska will never grow to the scale of what we have in the Haymarket or even the Old Market, just think of the impact when you empower and educate communities about how to ensure their longevity of their downtown commercial districts and in many cases their community. And as I mentioned before, all the levels of membership and partnerships that we have, our designated Main Street communities are the communities in Nebraska that have an actual organization that's focused on downtown revitalization. They have paid staff, a board of directors, a budget, a work plan, a vision, and they're carrying out that vision. Our associate member communities are a little bit lower level community. A lot of them are just a independent, small volunteer committee working in the community to do various projects, including downtown. Our rural associate members are the same as an associate member, but they're in communities of a population less than 1,000 people. We've got two of those right there in the middle of the state, Bassett and Taylor. And finally, our co-op communities. We have two of them participating currently, Milligan and Plymouth. Now, on to the projects. Here's where we get into all the pretty pictures. This is downtown Beatrice. Beatrice is minus a town square. They're at the intersection of two major federal highways, and so it's very difficult to do events and activities downtown. They don't have a whole lot of pedestrian-friendly space in the downtown district, and so it's very hard for them to do things. So they got a grant from DED, and we're able to widen the sidewalks and create a nice space. This is the before picture of 5th Street. This is a picture of 5th Street as it's going under construction. And here's a picture of it afterwards. And if you notice that the parallel parking is now angled parking, the sidewalks are wider, and the space is now more usable. Because of that, they've been able to create an event called Third Thursdays, where they have entertainment, food, and games for families that come downtown. And it runs from April to August. And also, one of the exciting things that happened was a group of individuals. There used to be a guy that started a popcorn stand back in the 1930s and had it running until probably the 1980s before it shut down. Community members got together, raised the funds to create a replica popcorn stand downtown, and now it sits at the corner of 5th and Court. and is very active. And the cool thing about it is nonprofit organizations within the community can sign up to run the popcorn stand and make a little bit of profit for their organizations. This is downtown Falls City. Fresh off of getting their downtown listed in the National Register of Historic Places and also completing a downtown streetscape improvement project like Beatrice did, this is another long discussed and long planned project that finally came to fruition. I would assume a lot of you know about John Philip Falter, the artist that was born in Plattsmouth and grew up in Falls City. There was a group of folks, locals and non-locals, that had a passion for this and wanted to open a museum highlighting his work. It took them forever to figure out whether they were going to build a new building or rehab an old one, and thankfully they chose to rehab an old one. This is the former Richardson County Bank on a prominent corner in downtown Falls City. Here's what it looks like today on the outside. They're only utilizing the first floor for the museum. I'm not certain what the upper floors are being utilized for, but here's what it looked like before, and here's what it looks like now. They actually have a replica of his studio in Philadelphia that sits in this space, and it's on loan from the Nebraska State Historical Society Museum. And there's another picture of this. It looks like they put a display in the old bank vault. Downtown Fremont is our only remaining original Main Street community from 1994. Over the 22 years plus that they've been working on downtown revitalization, they've just now recently really come into vitality and activity. In the 1970s, they formed a downtown improvement district in hopes of getting people to come to downtown Fremont as folks were fleeing to the suburbs of Omaha and doing a lot of their shopping there as Omaha grew west. And so now they're looking at forming a business improvement district to maintain their vitality and actually come into having some legal entity to be able to collect the taxes to then reinvest downtown. As you can see, they've already done a lot of improvements to downtown, a lot of streetscape projects. There are a lot of new businesses downtown. A lot of businesses have rehabbed buildings in downtown. It's become a very vibrant place. One of the cool projects that have kind of come in the last couple of years is called the Creative Collective. Not only is it a building, but it's also a business and a business activity incubator for downtown. It was started by Glenn Ellis, who is the founder of Sycamore Education. The Creative Collective is located in the old May Brothers building, which was also Kresge's. So if I go back a couple slides, it's this building right here. And as you can see, the Pathfinder Hotel that exploded in the 70s is on the other corner further down. Sycamore Education is located in the building along with some other business entities, but eventually there'll be a coffee shop on the main floor, a meeting space where they can have social activities and training events and lectures, a co-working incubator space occupying the upper floors. Mr. Ellis says that he's created an environment where others can take their creative ideas, cultivate them, and grow them into regional and global solutions. It's a safe place to fail and then start again. So in addition to this venture, they've also worked with Main Street Fremont to create a nighttime and weekend artisan market. They have it inside the May Brothers building when the weather is inclement, but there's a picture of their outdoor market. It's gained a lot of attention, and a lot of people are starting to come. A lot of vendors are very interested in participating in this. It's not your everyday craft show or arts and craft show. It's very upscale, high-class event. Downtown Grand Island. For a large community, it took Grand Island a long time to figure out where they wanted to be. Many of the resources invested in development went toward the mall and the big box chain stores along Highway 281. Businesses were moving out of downtown and things became dire. A small group of young entrepreneurial developers involved in their Main Street program finally stepped forward, realizing the grand opportunities that downtown held. First, it was Amos Anson, who took a risk on rehabbing a building and creating upper floor housing. And this is his first project. There's a bookstore on the main floor and 2 floors of upper floor housing in the upstairs. He stripped off the front and redid the facade and created the apartments inside. I don't think I have interior pictures of it, but. And then after this project was successful, he took on a series of additional projects that then finally led to other developers tackling projects downtown. The second project that Amos did was called the Chocolate Bar. And of course, after lunch you want to have a piece of that cake sitting on the. But they have wonderful food, wonderful desserts, wonderful sandwiches, and they're open all the time. So it's created a very social hub in the downtown district, as well as good at feeding people. His wife runs this. He's her landlord, but she runs the business very successfully. It really took off, and a lot of people have been asking for space for downtown meetings. They owned the building next door and were able to create a nice event space attached to that. So the catering and the event space are all in one, and it's really nice. We had a meeting there this spring, and it's a very nice facility. He also took on a giant building. This is the old Masonic Temple in downtown Grand Island. There were plans from an Omaha developer to turn it into a hotel. Those plans fell through, but Amos continued to see potential for this building and is now currently working on the upper floors. The first part, he rehabbed the lower floor for a couple of retail businesses. And those are running very successfully, but he's turning the upper floors into condos. The board chair in Grand Island had done a couple properties in the past, and he saw how successful Amos was with his latest projects that he decided he was going to try another one. And so now this is going to be, this is the former Labor Temple in downtown Grand Island, which is going to be housing as well. And then a totally different developer is working on this one. This one is the Hetty Building. Used to have the Grand Island Independent, I believe, was located in this building, and now there's a pawn shop. But what's cool about this is it's got a balcony in the inside with space. So it was a department store and other activities in there, other commercial uses at one time. But this will be a nice project when it's finished as well. Downtown leaders, city leaders, and the developers realized that what they were doing was building a sense of community and a social hub for the community. This has increased the activity and vibrancy in downtown and has led the Business Improvement District and Main Street to rebrand themselves as Railside. Downtown leaders realized that they will never return to the commercial center it will never be the commercial center of the community again. But it can be the social gathering place for the community and visitors coming to the community for various events and activities. This is our favorite one. This is downtown Plattsmouth. Plattsmouth was actually where the Main Street program was announced in 1994. At that time, it was a dirty little river town. Downtown was empty and forlorn. Today, it's affectionately known as the Jewel of the Platte and is the most picturesque streetscape in Nebraska, as you can see with the Victorian architecture and their deep appreciation for their history. They had a major streetscape project accomplished several years ago. It was tied to the mandated sewer separation project, and they figured why not hit everything all at once instead of spending money twice and tearing it back up again to do a streetscape, so they built it all into one and are very pleased, and a lot of people, it's drawing a lot of attention to the community. One of the final touches was a performance venue in the downtown. Again, like most of downtowns in Nebraska, there is no courthouse square where communities can hold events. So they have to get creative and find other ways to find event space in the community. So they created this beautiful performance plaza in the downtown. Unfortunately, as some of you may know, they've lost the building here to a fire a couple years ago, and so now it stands as an empty lot. That is for sale, so hopefully somebody will come forth and design and build a building on that space. but for right now, the performance space is still very active. Plattsmouth is a great example of how Main Street is an ongoing effort. Too many communities think with revitalization has a beginning and an end. A healthy downtown needs continual care and feeding. While things may look good and buildings are filled with businesses, there is still a lot of work to be done. The community realized that increased vitality depends on people and activity in the district. The Main Street program knows that by increasing residential units downtown, that it will help with their vitality. To that end, the Main Street program has been working on upper floor housing development with several building owners. This is Jim and Jerry Burke. They own a couple other buildings downtown that they've turned the upper floors into residences, and this is their latest project. They've been working to address the challenges, especially with fire suppression and the cost of that, as well as the cost of rehab and other difficult costs that come when you try and put rental housing in an upper floor of a building. Here's what the unit looked like before. It was a former funeral home, and then for a long time it was used as storage. It actually had a fire in it at one time, and I think it was right after the Burkes began to own it that there was a fire, and then they weren't able to do a whole lot with it, and have slowly gotten there. But this is the before, and here's what the kitchen looks like now. It's a one-bedroom a unit, and it rents for a pretty high sum compared to a lot of the other apartments in Plattsmouth, but they're hopeful that they'll be able to get rent out of that, and then it may generate some other people. But they realize that having people downtown 24/7, needing goods and services downtown, that upper floor housing is an important component that they need to have. The most exciting project, sure to increase activity downtown, is the new Southeast Community College Learning Center. It's going to be opening hopefully this fall or early in 2017 in the Dovey building in downtown. Again, a large building that people were afraid to do anything with because of the cost. And then when Southeast Community College realized it needed space, we're thrilled that they chose a downtown and not to build a new building somewhere else in the community. There'll be a coffee shop operated by a private business in the lower floor, lounge areas, classrooms, all kinds of stuff. It's going to increase the foot traffic in downtown Plattsmouth, and folks are really excited about that. This is downtown Sydney. Sydney's our furthest west participating program. They also have a similar problem in their community of having event space downtown. Main Street's a straight street running through downtown, and there just isn't a whole lot of room to have anything. Plus, they're on Highway 30, so that eliminates and really makes it difficult to close the street off for events. So they created Hickory Square at the north end of 10th Street. Not only is there the covered parking, but also those canopies provide protection for the farmers market vendors. At the north end of the square, right there by the train, they've got interpretive panels that describe Sydney's history and historic events that happen in the community. It's a very hot space, but they use it in the summer, and they use it also in the winter for all of their Christmas activities. So it's nice that they finally have a space, a gathering space downtown. Businesses on either side of the street benefit from that as well. Another project in Sydney is Cabela's. This is the old Cabela's warehouse. It had been used for storage for their stuffed animal collection for several years until one of their divisions needed to expand and move out of the headquarters building and into another space. They successfully rehabbed the building, utilizing many of the interior features of the former John Deere tractor building, which was that before it was Cabela's. Unfortunately, I don't have any pictures of the interior. Cabela's is very private company, and they don't share a whole lot of information. I was fortunate to be able to see what the plans were when they were working on this project, so I can assure you that the inside is absolutely beautiful and retains a lot of that industrial character. And the architect out there was very conscientious about wanting to preserve that character. Wayne is the town of millennial entrepreneurs. This community has always taken advantage of being a state college town. Their youthful spirit has led to a community that is working hard to keep graduates in the community as well as others. Wayne provides us with the best example of young entrepreneurs and the value of business transition. Their economic development umbrella includes the Main Street program that focuses energy on the downtown and helps those entrepreneurs and the building owners secure the resources that they need for their businesses. They've done a really great job of balancing new and old and have created a vibe that has sparked youthful investments in the downtown businesses that will hopefully be there well into the future. Rustic Treasures was started by Mark and Lucas. It was a consignment antique store, or is a consignment antique store. They started out in one building, but grew very quickly, which led to their need to move to bigger space. And also there was a retiring antique dealer in the community that was retiring, and they took on her business and actually her space across the street. And so that freed up the building that they were in for another entrepreneur. Time eventually came for the coffee shop owner next door to Rustic Treasures to retire, and due to all their successful business ventures thus far, Mark and Lucas took over the coffee shop. They made significant changes to the business and the building to reflect the needs and desires of their community. And you can see they did, there's not a whole lot you can do to make a very plain building look good, but they have a real strong design sense and came up with this on their own. Rustic Treasures continued to grow with goods that didn't quite fit the high-end antiques that they had been selling, but yet the need for consigning goods was still prevalent. Earlier this year, they opened another business called the Thrift Warehouse in the former Dollar General building downtown. And to illustrate the level of energy and success that these young entrepreneurs exude, the two recently purchased and will be rehabbing the old City Hall and Fire Station in Wayne that was built in 1912, and they're going to call it the 1912 Emporium. There'll be a couple of new businesses in here. I'm not sure what they're going to do with the upper floor yet, but they said with this project they're just simply going to be the landlords and will be the persons responsible for the rehab, but they're not interested in opening any more stores. And this is a project that's been sitting vacant for several years, and we were always wondering what was going to happen to it. And so we're really excited that they've taken the risk on this. Swan's Women's Clothing is another business in the community that was retained through business transition from a retiring owner. Improvements to her building not only give a fresh outlook to the business, but also adds to the fresh outlook of downtown as well. So you can see that these young people are getting into preservation, they're getting excited about being business owners, and hopefully will make a huge impact on the community. Now, I don't want to leave out our associate and rural associate member communities and the work they're doing. While they may not have a full-blown organization, a work plan, or some other things happening, they sure have some really great projects happening independently in their communities. Hastings in the upper left, this is just one example of several of the projects that they're working on throughout the downtown that are either completed, in the works, or in the plans for the future. Minden, down here in the lower center, they just celebrated 100 years of lighting their county courthouse at Christmas this past December. That's been a neat project, has brought a lot of attention to Nebraska's Christmas city. The Keystone Business Center over here in downtown McCook used to be the former Keystone Hotel in downtown. They've maintained the hotel lobby as well as the mezzanine level, and so it looks just like it did, or brought back the character of what it looked like when it was hotel. And the upper floors are now part of their business incubator, business services, training center, all kinds of good things that will help entrepreneurs in this part of the state. It's exciting to see what's going on in McCook. There's a lot of new energy, some re-energized individuals that were part of Main Street in the past that are now involved in some other projects and really wanting to get downtown back on the map again. So it's really nice to see this and nice to see a community-wide effort. The Taylor Villagers, if you've not seen the Taylor Villagers throughout Taylor, Nebraska, it's pretty exciting to see that they made national news this last year. The nice NET special that was done by Nebraska Educational Television actually made it to the national airwaves and brought some real strong attention to Taylor, Nebraska. But there's these painted villagers throughout the community that a woman that owns a business, her husband is a teacher at the high school and also on the school board. And she's done this for several years. And if you ever get up near Schuyler, there's a set of villagers that sit at the Crotchell Garage outside of, just between North Bend and Schuyler. But that's been kind of a neat project that's drawn attention to the community. In addition to what's going on in Taylor with the villagers and the attention it's coming, they've also been building a trail that goes from the community out into the country and are hoping to draw cyclists, hikers, getting people exercising in the community. It's a real strong partnership between the Department of Roads and the village of Taylor. So that's been pretty exciting. In the upper center is downtown Schuyler, Nebraska, one of Nebraska's newest National Register listed commercial districts as of just a couple weeks ago. The top-notch building was kind of the project that set them off to build their interest in historic preservation. The community did not have a strong preservation ethic for many years, which is unfortunate because they have a downtown full of beautiful old historic buildings. It took several years to rebuild that sense of historic preservation, that sense of history and appreciation for history. And it all started out with the top-notch building, which was the former Oddfellows building in downtown Schuyler. It sits on a prominent corner. What ended up happening is people then realized how important the other buildings were in downtown. And so while this was a failed National Register attempt, their National Register district as a whole came through with flying colors. Schuyler's on the Lincoln Highway, and part of their nomination included the brick streets in their downtown. That was one of their historic assets that they included in their nomination. So from a community that had no appreciation for historic preservation is now very excited at the opportunities that the listing has afforded them for marketing and promotional purposes, as well as redevelopment opportunities. Finally, down in the lower right, another community that didn't really embrace historic preservation, Neely, Nebraska. We had done a site visit with them last year, and lo and behold, they didn't realize what kind of a valuable asset they had in their downtown district as well, in this almost pristine Metzger Brothers cast iron storefront. And so now this empty building that had been long empty and had been talked about being torn down will now house a new business. And so and now they know what they've got as an asset and appreciate that. And they're starting to look at some other buildings in their community as assets. As you can see, there are a lot of exciting things happening on Main Street. I encourage all of you to take a road trip sometime and visit some of these places and see what your fellow Nebraskans have been doing in these communities. And with that, I will take questions. No question. Yes.
I'm from Schuyler, and I have seen the downtown go down from the loss of a lot of historic buildings in the town. And that the one that you talked about, didn't that have a fire in it too at one point?
One of the yes, there was a fire. The building that I showed from Schuyler did have a fire in it. at one time, and it was a building that they were probably going to lose. And I think enough of the community came forward to say it's on a prominent corner. It's on the corner actually where there was a turn in the Lincoln Highway. And so that's what kind of spurred them on to say, what can we do with it? And actually I've been in it since the fire, and most of the damage stayed on the main floor. A little bit of smoke damage on the upper floor, but structurally it's a sound building that we hope can get revitalized, and hope it'll spur some other ones too. With the transition in that community from with the new immigrants that have been coming to the community, there's been a lot of change downtown. And a lot of the buildings that were taken care of are no longer being taken care of very well. And I think it's not so much the new immigrants, but them not knowing the opportunity that's out there. And I think now that they've got strong leadership in the community that sees the potential, then I think things are going to change. Gordon.
Other than in Plattsmouth, where there is considerable second-story housing, are there other towns that are developing the second stories for housing?
The question was about upper floor housing in other communities that are doing upper floor housing. Sydney actually received, I believe, a CLG grant a couple of years ago to do a study on upper floor housing, and there's been a few upper floor units developed independently in Sydney. I think they want to show the rest of the community how easy it is to do by using those as an example. So there are other communities doing that. Obviously, Grand Island, they again, like Plattsmouth, realize without having people living downtown, there's no vitality in the community, and so development of those upper floor spaces is important. Other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.